Star Trek Prodigy, Season 2, Episode 9 review. The Devourer of All Things. Part 1.
Well, I did not see that coming.
Wesley Crusher.
So I didn't see that coming, but did you in any way?
No.
I can't say that I didn't because it was spoiled for me.
Okay. Yeah, I went completely blind. It was out of nowhere. It's like, okay.
It
Following
wasn't my choice. I didn't
Yeah,
choose
no, I'm
to
not
be
blaming you.
spoiled. I was like,
you. I got the benefit of not being spoiled. You.
I knew he was coming. I just didn't know when.
Yeah.
It was there was a mention of, oh, Wesley Crusher's gonna be in the second half of this new of Prodigy, and I'm like, God damn it, why you gotta tell me these things?
Yeah, because coming in, I managed to avoid all that news, and like I was expecting, okay, like they were, okay, well this is a straightforward place right here, so okay, well they'll just run into Chakotay. No, it's Wesley Crusher.
Although, tell me, did that not feel like Father's Day to you?
Yeah, it's the same.
Doctor
Yeah,
Who episode.
we've talked about it before about what we thought like those things were that got the hologram, and I think one of the things we did mention was like Reapers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we did mention that that was a thought as to what those were.
Yeah, but it's solidified as
yeah. Now we know exactly what those things were.
Oh yeah.
and as much as we can.
They're called. The funny thing is, they're called the Loom, which, if anybody doesn't know Doctor Who deep lore, that's supposedly how Time Lords are born. They're loomed into existence.
Yeah.
By, weaving their genetic material of
used
their
to be
houses,
the
blah,
long
blah, blah.
barrows.
Yeah.
That was
Doctor's. Longborough.
Yeah. Something I knew I was in the right neighborhood of that, but yeah.
Longborough and Oakdown are the Master and the Doctor. I don't remember who was who. I think the Master's Oakdown.
Yeah, I don't remember Oakdown. I do remember Lungbarrow, so I think the Doctor
That's probably the Doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have heard that one before.
I don't know who what house the Ronnie's from. Yeah. I don't know what house the Ronnie's from. Also, all those little tidbits that he was talking about with like the timelines are from other Star Trek continuities. Starts with an M. The spores.
Narendra or something.
No,
mycelial plane. Yeah, that was
mycelial plane is the kind of subspace style thing that the spore drives in Discovery used to travel super far distances in like the blink of an eye.
Yeah,
and it's
also where they've
they were using these giant tardigrades, but it was killing them, so they've released them and blah blah blah.
Yeah, and it's also the supposed home of the Alachi, I think. Well, that's at least where it got down to other things. But I was gonna say, yeah, each of those things was like Prime, Mirror, all those were different timelines that
were found within Star Trek.
Yeah, like the whole
like series.
Yeah,
I
something
wonder,
that.
I don't remember, but was one of those dimensions a reference to the Kelvin verse?
Yeah, it was something or other incident, which was like the Narendra incident, which I think that's the name of Nero's ship or something like that. Or
I don't think so. Nero had like a
Yeah, but it was a mining vessel. It was a repurposed mining vessel that was, I think, called the Narendra. But I could look that up.
I like the little Easter eggs they threw in there with like all the different dimensions they referenced.
Although, was there like another series where he got like into some time travel stuff?
Yes and no. In the Next Generation, the reason why they had him leave the show because they wrote him as a Gary Stu, and so fans really didn't like him because he was a bit of a know-it-all, and he's all like, "Oh, let's solve this problem," blah blah blah, and it wasn't the actor's fault. It wasn't the fault of the character. It was the writing for him sucked. And because of that, they, fans hated him. So they finally phased him out, first by sending him to the academy, and then by he met this being called the Traveler who sent them outside of the universe.
They got rid of him by sending him outside. Like, he is no longer part of this universe. He is so disliked.
Yeah, basically, he became part of this celestial celestial race. He basically became a pseudo Q. Like, the Traveler was this higher power that was able to see time and space and think at a higher plane of reality, and Wesley was able to help him rescue the ship from a danger that he accidentally caused, and so he became the Traveler's protege.
Narada, that's what it was. Narendra, I think, is something else. That's something else in Star Trek. I got confused. But
and so he and the Traveler went traveling, and that's how they got rid of him. Although he did appear in Picard season 2 at the end to help to, I don't remember what, but just as kind of an Easter egg, or maybe it was one. It was the end of one of the seasons.
But yeah, so seeing him pop up out of nowhere, and he's a little mad scientist-y at this point.
But I mean, a little mad.
For
sure.
Yeah, well, he's got that sort of.
He's got a kind of cross, sort of. Yeah, he's kind of a cross between 10 and 11 at this point.
Yeah, there's a lot of Doc Brown in that character right now.
Although I think Janeway remembers why she didn't mind the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah, it's like that. No, it's just so sweet. To someone of a short, shut the fuck up. I'm going.
Yeah,
I'm going into a transwarp tunnel.
I'm going through a tunnel. What? We are going through a transwarp tunnel.
Yeah, well, and she's Janeway, so what are they gonna do to her? She's
right.
At this point, it's like
she fucking dominated the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah, she boldly went where no one has gone before for 7 years and got back. Well, well, next to no one has gone before because the Nova was there.
Has gone.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, was like, from the Federation perspective.
I love the colonial attributes to that phrase. It's like, let's go where no one has gone before. Oh, a new civilization. That's okay. No one's gone there before.
Well, it was always from the Federation perspective of someplace we've gone before. It was always the sort of implied thing. It's like in order to seek out new life and new civilizations was always part of that phrase too. Was to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. It's like, that it was always sort of implied nobody the Federation had gone before. It's like we don't know these new civilizations. We acknowledge their existence, but we just haven't been there before, and so we're talking about it from our perspective. Nobody from our civilization has gone to that civilization before, so that would be where no one from us has gone before. But yeah.
I mean, love her or hate her, she is a bit of a badass.
Yeah, and at this point, like, she just, at the point that she got back, she could basically do whatever the hell she wanted, because just like, oh yeah, you want them, like, because I would love to see her records, because she's probably like, they probably keep tallies of who's made the most first contacts, who's explored the most new, charted the new anomalies and whatnot. It's like, you just have just normal people, then you get to the top, you start seeing Janeway pop up on all these lists. It's like, yeah, but she kind of gets an asterisk because she was in the Delta Quadrant and nobody else could compete with her. But that doesn't take away from the fact that she did so many first contacts. But she was she's basically, it's like, who has the, it's like, if you have, I'm just imagining, like, somebody asking, they're covering sort of Starfleet in school or something, and it's like,
I mean,
who has the most first contacts? Take a wild guess. It's probably, if you're asking who has a record on something, it's probably Janeway.
Well,
Janeway or Kirk.
Yeah, Janeway or Kirk, one of those two. You guess one of those two, you're probably gonna. You're right.
Wait.
First contacts, Janeway probably, just because she had all the species to meet. Like, everyone she met was a first contact until she met. Every species she meets was a first contact, except for
or Archer.
So
Archer's in there too.
I'm gonna guess that Picard's first contacts are kind of low.
He was more in the settled sort of golden age of the Federation. Like, they were still kind of making, it was more like sort of lower decks pace. It wasn't like, they weren't like they sort of found the edges of all this, they made sort of borders with everybody. Everybody kind of figured out their places, their lines on the map, but there was still stuff to investigate within those places. And so
he was more he was more the diplomat. He would go on missions to help smooth out like issues
between systems that they already knew. It's like, we already knew, okay, remember those guys we met like 100 years ago? Yeah, they're fighting or they're arguing about something. Go check it out, try and smooth things out. Okay. You go send the Enterprise to go smooth things out between a couple of races that are having a little tiff. Yeah, it's like, oh, well, he did this and he did this. Okay, well, you need to calm down. You need to stop that. You need to give him some slack.
That's not to say we weren't introduced to new species, because there were the Ferengi, there were the Cardassians.
But he wasn't making the first contact. That first contact was already sort of established.
He was ironing out that first contact.
Yeah. They were doing less. He was doing less new civilizations and, mostly new phenomena, and sort of acting as a bit of a diplomacy to try and keep everything nice and smooth in the Federation, and that sort of thing. Sort of when they wanted to, the Enterprise was basically an aircraft carrier, because if you wanted to, say, hey, we're taking whatever we're doing seriously, whatever's going on over here, we're taking it seriously. You send the Enterprise. People go, oh, the Federation is taking this very seriously, because they wouldn't have sent the Enterprise if they weren't.
Exactly.
You see, or just any of the Galaxy classes, because they're humongous ships. And so if a Galaxy,
they had entire families on board.
Yeah.
Schools.
Yeah. if a galaxy shows up on your doorstep, then the Federation is taking this very seriously. If the Enterprise shows up on your doorstep, the Federation is taking this incredibly seriously, because you just pulled the Enterprise, and you don't pull the Enterprise unless something.
You don't pull Enterprise pull you.
Yeah. The Enterprise is just like, oh yeah, no. If the Enterprise shows up, stuff just got real. It's like things are not going well, or things are very important that need to go well, and that's when the Enterprise shows up. But yeah, no, Archer probably did a lot of that too. It's a bit like Janeway. He didn't have a lot of competition. Like he was
exactly.
I don't think he had quite as much time to be the only sort of human vessel out there, because they launched Columbia and whatnot afterwards, and so they got to do their own thing. But he was there out there on his own for a while, so that wasn't, I don't think he had as much time as Janeway did by herself, but they did. Kirk did a little bit of that. It was still sort of early days, so there was still stuff.
It was kind of like Gold Rush era, where everybody was settling in the West, and it wasn't completely, like gentrified, but at the same time, they weren't encountering new people, just the same people they did know for the most part.
Yeah, and then TNG, they're doing that. Then you get to DS9, and they do meet a few new species from the other side of the wormhole, but mostly those people are coming to the Federation rather than the Federation going to them, because they come in through
there was a big part of it, but it was mainly 4 new species or so. The 2 that they were meeting for the first time, and then the Jem'Hadar and the Founders. Well, 5, sorry. There were also the Jem'Hadar, the Horta, and the Founder. Not Horta. Not
Vorta.
Vorta. There we go.
Yeah.
Horta,
and then you had a few accessories ones that were like the Karema. They were also in there. They were traders. They just traded stuff.
That's what I was talking about. They were the people they met to trade with, who introduced them to the Founders.
Yeah. And so they didn't meet a lot of people, but there was a whole quadrant out there, and who knows how many species they met once the fighting stopped. So spoilers for DS9, I suppose.
After they beat the Founders into submission with that stupid biological weapon,
but
that really shouldn't have existed.
But yeah, and then you get it back up to then it's Voyager, and Voyager is almost on its own the entire time it's out there. Though because
it was way back in the 60s when they called it Lost in Space.
Yeah, which is funny because they do still run into Klingons.
Yes, they do. Who think that Alana's baby is the chosen one.
Yeah, is the Messiah.
It's Klingon Jesus.
Basically. Yeah, they do run into another Federation ship. They run into the Nova, which that's a whole other story.
They ran into not the Cardassians, but a ship that was made to a weapon that was made to destroy the Cardassians, but ended up
flying off to the Delta
into
Quadrant.
The wrong direction.
Yeah, and then it's just sort of okay. Now that's out here, so
and
they had to deal with that.
Another Federation, who were not very Federation-y.
Yeah,
because they were complete a-holes. That captain sucked.
Yep. They did manage to scavenge a few extra
crew members
off of it, but yeah.
And I mean, I get it. Not all of the crew members were a-holes. They had to follow what, their captain said to do. But some of them were dicks.
Yep. But yeah, what was I gonna say? So yeah, that's a long way of saying like all these things that he was talking about are all, you know. Oh, and this kind of brings me back to the name of them, because it's kind of a double name, because you have loom, they loom like, you know,
oh yeah,
hanging over you, but they're also sort of loom as the threads of the timeline.
Yeah.
You know. But so that was a fun little bit of a name, but yeah, there wasn't a lot, like what we got was, you know, very concentrated. Like what actually changed, like, was very concentrated. The big sort of thing out of this episode is Wesley Crusher's around, and you know,
apparently an X-Men.
X-Men.
Yeah, and
and literally an X-Man.
and
he's a super being.
Well, and the thing that the Voyager A is there.
Yeah.
Like, they caught up to them.
They caught up really fast. Of course, they didn't have the little side thing. Although, makes me wonder. They got some explaining to do. It's like, what happened to Zero? I'm right here. Yeah, that is them.
Yeah.
What? They possessed somebody? No. They just got their own body.
I don't know. I thought it was funny. It's like, would you like some earth grapes?
Yeah. Earth grapes.
Yeah. And so, but yeah,
if
then
they were vengeful, would they be the grapes of wrath?
Yes.
I kind of almost, I didn't do it, but I kind of almost want to look and see that room he takes them to at the end of it, like, sort of, okay, we're safe for now. Like, going through that room and seeing what Easter eggs were stored in there, because there probably were some things scattered about. If
oh, no doubt.
Yeah, if you slow down and looked at those. But yeah, it was sort of just a trippy, weird thing that happened, and we do find out that the travelers were involved in sort of that temporal Cold War shenanigans, trying to keep that thing from.
Also, Murph has a very dirty mouth.
And he can understand them, and
yes.
and which without the whale interpreter, which is interesting.
I bet he had a whale of a time doing it. But do you think that Murph swears on purpose?
What if he's just doing nothing but swearing this entire time? But people don't realize it. It's like, well, if they can't understand me, I can swear like a sailor.
Yeah, that would be the advantage of nobody understanding you. You can just swear as much as you like, and nobody cares, because nobody, like, they can sense a tone, but that's about as much as they can get. They can kind of get your emotions from what you're saying. But if you stay just a string of expletives, but you keep a completely straight face, yeah, just completely straight face. You don't raise your voice. You just just a string of swear words without giving any tone away. You can swear as much as you like, and nobody would notice.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of what the Twisted Tunes, where Nolan North voices as Mickey Mouse and just like swears and stuff, but as Mickey Mouse, so it's still that you motherfucker.
But yeah.
And that would be Murph, just like spewing out profanity after profanity, but nobody knows because he just sounds all.
It was also interesting the way he talked to Gwen, like it was like about her sort of the thing that's sort of anchoring her.
Yeah.
And like, no, the doctor, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like clearly he knows he could do better, but is like, it's fine, it works. I don't want to risk messing around with this. Well, let's just leave it as is.
Tell me that is not a doctor thing to say.
Yeah, he's
it's like unit did something. It's like, oh, you made that, huh? Yeah, it does its job, I guess. Like, if I had time, I would totally make a better one, but no, it works.
Yeah, and I can't afford to have that shut off right now, so it's ramshackle, and it's an early attempt. It's a brave attempt, but I could make this 20 times better, but it's fine. It's fine. I have other things to deal with. Prioritize. Yeah, it does very feel much like I have time. I don't have time right now, so I'm going to just leave it. It works. It's not a problem. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It bugs me, but it's fine.
Literally any incarnation of the Doctor at any moment in time.
But yeah, so seeing Wesley show up again was interesting, but it's like the fact that we're like, it's not apparently not a very far, a far distance to go, because he says, which is actually kind of funny if you think about it, because he says, like, you're halfway there to doing what they need to do to put the protostar where it needs to be. So it's like, no, you're halfway there, and this is episode 9 of a 20 episode series.
Yeah, and I mean, keep in mind, they still have hijinks to get done.
Yeah,
they can't do it just yet, like he said.
Yeah,
like,
well,
you have to do it at just the opportune moments, as what's his name, Sparrow would say.
Yeah, it's you're halfway there, which, if you watch this as a 2-part episode, so if you watch both parts at once, you'd be halfway through the series. So by the end of it, we'll have this whole situation resolved, but we'll see. Which is also going to be weird for Janeway next episode, because they're there, they find the Infinity, but the Protostar gang have disappeared into thought, or whatever the hell that was.
I mean, to be fair, how many of us haven't disappeared into thought at some point in time?
But usually not literally.
I mean,
really? You don't get lost literally? Huh.
I want to get lost with Hawaii. I get lost in thought all the time. It's the power of ADHD and zoning
exactly.
out.
Like, literally, I am sat there and all of a sudden 2 hours have passed. I have no idea where I've been.
I mean, I'll fully admit, no, don't get me wrong, but I'll fully admit this. Anytime you two are going at it on a very long tangent about something, I zone out.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Most of the time when Dex is going over his Sailor Moon conversation, I zone out for most of it.
I still listen. See, I can zone out, but also listen at the same time.
Well, yeah,
it just takes me a moment to come back to reality. Like, what? Oh, let's see what else about the show. So I guess we got two storylines going. We got like the main storyline, and then we got Janeway's crew. I love it. So, I always knew she was a hologram.
Yeah, I mean, he is a I forget Jenkins people Tellarite. So
yeah,
I mean that's just par for the course for them.
Yeah, they're very proud and they're very argumentative. Arguing is like a sign of respect for them. Like if you don't argue with them, they feel a little slighted.
Wasn't that an episode? Wasn't that one of the tests that Crusher had to deal with? Where it's like he was dealing with a Tellarite and he argued with him because like, well, that's how they show respect. Like during his academy exam.
That does make me wonder, would a Tellarite and a Klingon get along? Or would that be like the most epic arguments ever?
I think the Tellarite, the Klingon wouldn't be able to give him a good enough argument to make him satisfy him, and the Klingon would be annoyed that the Tellarite just wanted to argue and just talk. Like the Tellarite wants to spar with words, the Klingon wants to spar with fists, and like they both want to fight, but they want to fight with different weapons, and it's just going to annoy both of them.
Yeah, and I mean the Tellarite arguing is a sign of respect. Klingons arguing is a sign of, okay, you thrown hands now.
Yeah, it's challenge. It's a challenge.
Yeah, they are more honor driven and they show respect, not often to outsiders, but respect has to be earned, and it's not earned by bad mouth.
Yeah. Like they find the Klingons find the Vulcans annoying, I gotta imagine. It's just like, no, they want to talk. I don't want to talk anymore. You and the humans want to talk all the time. So can we just go hang out with some Andorians? They seem cool.
But
yeah, like the Andorians and the Klingons would if they were on the same side of a fight would get along famously, but yeah,
they're rarely on the same side of anything because the Andorians are very shifty people. Like the Andorians are very are rather xenophobic, and they're very much like, at least as far as like generally learned from what we see of them as a race, not just individuals like Jennifer in Lower Decks, but like as a race, like Shran and his people. They're very an entire race of spies. Basically, the entire CIA and NSA as a race of blue ice people.
I would throw a little more. There's a little more Klingon to them, a little more fight, but that's mostly just in comparison to Vulcans.
But they fight dirty. They fight. Sure, they're happy to fight, but they fight dirty.
But it's sort of a comparison to the. We see them a lot. When we actually get to see what they're like, it's usually in comparison to Vulcans. Yeah, which the Vulcans are at 0, and then so anybody who's not at 0 over here, like they will talk your ear off. They're peaceful. They will fight if they absolutely positively have to, but they generally would rather not.
Yeah,
but they would rather just sit there and spy, like the Romulans, who are also Vulcans, kind of. Yeah. It's a long story.
Yeah.
They are kind of like how how Mexicans are kind of Spanish. You know, they are originally from the same place, but
the cultures have diverged.
Generations upon generations have separated them to the point they evolved separately. Like,
well,
to the point where if I remember correctly, during the Reformation, when they began embracing logic, the ancestors of the Romulans were like, no, I like my emotions. See ya. And
they left and they became
to embrace their emotions. So they are a little closer to Klingon, minus the sense of honor, because they are pure passion. They are pure, pure emotion, basically.
Okay.
Well, and they're also pure paranoia because they,
that's emotion. If you think about it.
Yeah, well, that's their main focus. Is they are Romulans are your spies. Like,
yeah,
they have some of the best spy stuff.
I would say Romulans and Andorians would get along pretty well if faced with each other. They both dislike the Vulcans, and they both are very paranoid, xenophobic, and like,
yeah, you got them in the same room, but they would stay at arm's length from each other, or they would spit sort of little, little stuff like that. Cardassians are kind of in that same sort of camp. You get that same sort of it's more the Obsidian Order that's like that, but they are very much,
they're very militant
subterfuge.
though. They're also very militant.
Okay.
Whereas like the Andorians aren't as militant. They still have a militia, but they're more about the sneaking around part of it, and the Romulans are kind of like the Russians, where they're like all, I'm talking Cold War Russians, where it's like sneaking around and skulking and like getting
that's modern day Russia too, so not much has changed in that regard.
Okay,
some things have changed, some things haven't.
Here's a question though: if Romulans came from Vulcans, right?
Or at least a common ancestor.
Yeah.
No, they came from Vulcans.
Well, if you wanted to
they
call
came
what,
from the planet
if you wanted to call what became Vulcans and what became Romulans, like what was the source? If you want to call that a Vulcan, okay, because they were on Vulcan. They were on Vulcan, but they
still went by the name Vulcan.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. It's just when the Romulans left, they evolved their own name.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends on whether that, but anyway.
My question is, now I know impossible, although weird stuff has happened. If a Vulcan and a Romulus had a child, would that child be a Vulcan, a Romulus, or something completely different?
It would be a Vulcan, probably.
It would be Romulan and Vulcan, but they're so close. Like, I would have to look it up to see if their biology is the same, but I imagine it is. It's very similar. I would imagine it hasn't been that long since they diverged. So I can't imagine that
they would definitely be able to interbreed, and not only that, but their children would have no problem reproducing as well. It's not like, Klingon and Romulan having a child might be a little difficult, or Vulcan and human had a few issues with that at first. Like, they are very, very close in genetics, so there really wouldn't be much issue.
Yeah, there are two factions that are genetically very similar. Like, they're probably, of the factions we have in the Trek verse, they're probably the two closely related.
Now a Vulcan and a Klingon.
I actually drew that once.
Of course you did.
I used the lower deck artistry. And I called her Tukuv. Because Kuv means honored. And the T apostrophe is a common prefix for Vulcans. You know, to pring, to Paul, to fuck.
Tuvok.
Tuvok.
So, but he doesn't.
Oh,
He doesn't use it that way, but it's
and
yeah.
and the T apostrophe is more common in females.
Yes, I was being a big.
I know. I mean, I was being flippant with the fuck.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Like I said, there wasn't really a lot to this episode other than like what hit big, but we didn't actually learn a lot. Like we got our core of, hey, Crusher's here and the timeline's in danger. Oh yeah, and those tentacly things, yeah, those things, that's the loom, and we've kind of explained what that is. And then Janeway also showed up. So
yeah, and apparently they're not from some hentai.
Yeah. Hey, I guess I was right. They are creatures that eat broken time thing or whatever. Although, okay, that makes me wonder if there are creatures that literally feed on stuff like that. Broken timelines must happen very frequently, or they would just starve.
Temporal mechanics, but also in Doctor Who they have these things called chronovores, which live in the time vortex, and they feed on stray time travelers who get stuck in the vortex or who fall in somehow. So it isn't uncommon, but also think about the Reapers or
true.
Prodigy.
Although they just make me wonder if those things in Doctor Who get along with weeping angels or not.
Probably not. I don't know, because the weeping angels would be causing a paradox, but at the same time, they are quantum. Something about their quantum lock makes it so that it doesn't actually affect the timeline. Otherwise,
yeah, they seem to lock things in, because if they would create a paradox, but the way they send people back, like they build a loop, like the temporal loop actually is sort of built when they do that, and like everything has already happened. They have already been sent back in time before they even knew they were going to be sent back in time. And so like when they send somebody back, it's already sort of stitched into the universe but at that point. So by the time they actually send somebody back, if they didn't send somebody back, it would break the loop. So it would actually cause more problems to not have them, to interrupt them sending somebody back, because they send people backwards, they have already lived out their lives in that temporal loop. So it would actually break more stuff if they didn't send them back, I think. I hate temporal mechanics.
I love temporal mechanics.
Temporal mechanics are flawed,
right?
They make me all people.
They make me all dizzy and giddy.
But
I'm weird. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't think the Reapers care too much about the angels, because they don't create paradoxes. They sort of, by the time they're touching somebody to send them back, they're completing a loop. So to interrupt them would, it is already what has happened has already happened, and so to actually interrupt or try and stop the angels would actually cause lots of little temporal loops to break. So the Reapers aren't going to go after angels because it would cause more damage than they're creating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me see.
I think the way I see the Reapers, as opposed to these guys, the Looms, the way I see the Reapers is white blood cells. You know, they're like there to cauterize the wound and put things right so that there isn't a big gaping cut throughout the timeline.
Yeah, if somebody lives who wasn't supposed to live, and they're not like shifted over to a different planet or moved, like if somebody was supposed to disappear on a certain day and the doctor just picked them up on the day they disappeared and then just disappeared with them, that's not a problem because that's just what was supposed to happen. But if you have somebody who was supposed to die that day live, then the Reapers come in to fix that.
Yeah, and they're the white blood cells cauterizing the wound to time, and you are the bacteria that's causing the injury.
Yeah, they're going to do whatever is most quick to excise the wound, excise whatever the problem is, like to make this sort of disruption to the timeline as small as possible. And it's really a wonder that the doctor doesn't run into them more often.
This is true, especially in recent series. Like, I'm just like, really? You got all that shit from saving Rose's dad, but you aren't getting any of this from any of the other shit you're doing.
Yeah. But we're sort of diverting into Doctor Who now, so we've chased this episode around, and like
only 47 minutes.
Yeah, but like 10 minutes of it is actually not even, let's say 5 minutes is actually talking about the episode. Most of it's spent talking about sort of catching the audience back up on all the little, oh, this is what this species does and this is the species does, and talking about temporal loops and paradoxes. And another thing about the Reapers versus the Looms is the Looms, if we can believe, if Crusher is right, is they wipe out an entire timeline, whereas Reapers just are fixing a timeline. They're just picking that, okay, you were supposed to die, you didn't die, that breaks the rules. We're squishing you to make sure that you don't, unnecessarily mess with the timeline. So,
oh my god, the Looms are the TVA.
Yes, they are. I can see that.
With tentacles.
Well, that's what the T stands for. Tentacle Variation Authority.
That's a good place to end.
Yeah. Let's end on
tentacles. A tentacular conclusion.
See you next week in
Although
episode.
Technically, those aren't
10.
tentacles; those are pseudopodia, because tentacles would have little suckers at the very tips, only at the tips. Octopuses do not have tentacles; they have arms because the suckers are all the way along. Squid have tentacles and arms, and those do not have any suckers, ergo they are pseudopodia. Plus, the way they are being manipulated is kind of semi-polymorphic, which means they don't really have a central form. So therefore, they are probably more of, like cilia or pseudopodia.
Okay, quickly before we get on another tangent.
That was your biology lesson. Bye.